For close to 5 million years, the sons of God have degenerated on this planet. Their souls have come and gone in bodies never opening up to what and who they really were, only from time to time getting a little light into what they potentially were supposed to be.
Overall message of finding peace and empowerment through self-discovery and forgiveness.
It's like saying, here's some tools, some visual reminders to help you connect with that deeper part of yourself.
Exactly.
I love that it's like using art as a bridge between the inner and outer worlds.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today we're going to be looking at this idea of letting go to get what you want.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of a paradoxical concept, right?
Yeah.
So you sent me this YouTube video by Jeremy Cox.
Right.
It's called How to Get What You Want by Letting Go. And I'm really curious to unpack this idea with you.
Well, it's a fascinating concept for sure. Cox's main argument is that by letting go of the past,
okay,
particularly those negative memories and attachments we tend to carry with us,
yeah,
we actually open ourselves up to creating a better present and a better future.
I can see how holding on to like past hurts and baggage can kind of keep you stuck.
Yeah.
But he takes it a step further and says that you can essentially rewrite your past by fully embracing the present.
Right.
I'm a little skeptical of that, but I'm open to hearing more.
Yeah.
So what's the logic behind that?
Well, it's not about literally changing the events of the past.
Right.
But it's more about changing how those events affect us now. Just think about it. When we focus on reliving those past hurts or failures, we're actually kind of reinforcing those patterns in our present experience. But if we can shift that focus to the present moment, to what we're creating now, we can actually start to break free from those old patterns.
Okay.
And start building new, more positive experiences.
Okay, so instead of dwelling on, say, like a bad breakup, Cox would say we should focus on visualizing the kind of loving relationship we want in the present.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
Yeah, he suggests using our imagination as a very powerful tool for creation.
Yeah.
So instead of replaying those same old limiting beliefs and experiences, we can actually use this present moment to visualize and attract what we truly want. Whether that's a loving relationship or financial abundance, a fulfilling career, whatever it might be. The key is to shift our energy from dwelling on what was to envisioning what could be.
So using the power of imagination in a very deliberate way to actually shape our reality.
Exactly.
Where does the letting go part fit into this?
Yeah.
Because if I'm visualizing something I want, doesn't that mean I'm holding on to it in a way?
Yeah, and this is where the idea of detachment comes in.
Okay.
And it's a little paradoxical.
Yeah.
Cox explains that detachment doesn't mean not caring about what you want. It's more about releasing the need to control the outcome.
Okay.
He uses this analogy of feeling turned off by people that are overly attached to him. Like they're creating this needy energy that actually pushes him away.
I can relate to that. Like sometimes if you want something too badly, like you put too much pressure on it and then it backfires.
Exactly.
But how does this apply to like manifesting a dream job?
Right.
So is Cox saying we shouldn't be proactive in going after our goals?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
It's more about finding that balance between action and surrender. So you can still take all the practical steps toward your goal. Right.
Like updating your resume, networking, applying for jobs.
Right.
But at the same time, you're kind of releasing that desperate need for it to happen.
Okay.
He argues that clinging to it creates a kind of resistance that can hinder our progress.
So it's almost like trusting that the universe has a plan.
Excellent.
And if it's meant to be, it will happen.
Right.
Even if it doesn't look exactly the way we envision it.
Yeah. And that trust allows us to stay open to opportunities that might not have even been on our radar before.
Okay.
It's about releasing that rigid grip on our desires.
Okay.
And allowing them to flow more freely.
This is really making me rethink how I approach my goals and my desires.
Yeah.
This whole concept.
It's powerful stuff.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there like a psychological basis for this idea?
Well, there are.
Or is it more of a spiritual concept?
There are definitely connections to like psychological research on attachment styles.
Okay.
Studies show that people with secure attachment styles
tend to be more successful in relationships and just in life in general. They're able to form healthy bonds with others without feeling the need to control or cling.
So maybe this needy energy that Cox is talking about is actually rooted in like insecure attachment patterns that we develop early in life.
Yeah.
And by letting go of those patterns, we can actually create a more secure and balanced approach to our desires.
That's a really insightful connection.
Okay.
And it highlights the importance of understanding our own attachment pattern.
Yeah.
And how they might be influencing our ability to manifest what we want.
This is all starting to click for me now. But Cox also introduces this wild concept of shifting realities.
Oh.
He claims that we're constantly jumping between parallel realities.
Right.
And that our thoughts and emotions determine which reality we experience. This sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie.
It does sound a little out there. But he uses a really compelling analogy to explain it.
All right.
Imagine like a video game where you have multiple paths to choose from.
Right.
And your decisions in the game determine which path you take and which ending you experience.
Yeah.
He suggests that life is very similar.
Okay.
You know, we're constantly choosing between different realities based on our thoughts, beliefs, actions.
So it's like we're all playing our own video game.
Yeah.
And our thoughts and emotions are the controllers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And by becoming aware of our thoughts
and
choosing to focus on more positive beliefs,
right,
we can steer ourselves towards realities that are more aligned with our desires.
That's pretty mind-bending stuff.
That is.
It really makes you wonder what kind of realities we might be able to experience if we could fully master this art of letting go.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it leads us to another intriguing concept that Cox brings up.
Okay.
Conscious creation. He argues that we're constantly creating our reality.
Okay. Whether we're aware of it or not,
Right.
our thoughts and beliefs act like a magnet, attracting experiences that match their vibration.
So if I'm constantly thinking, I'll never find a job I love,
right,
I'm actually attracting more of that into my reality.
That's the idea.
Okay.
And conversely, if you can shift your thinking to, I am worthy of a fulfilling career,
right,
you start attracting opportunities that align with that belief.
Okay. That's giving me a lot to think about in terms of how I'm shaping my own reality.
Yeah.
Before we get too deep into the quantum physics of it all,
right,
can you tell me more about these practical tips that Cox offers for letting go?
Yeah.
I'm really curious to know how we can actually apply this stuff in our daily lives.
He suggests some really interesting and surprisingly simple techniques. Things like visualizing positive outcomes, not just for ourselves, but for others as well. Focusing on positive memories instead of dwelling on negative ones.
Yeah.
Even changing our environment and the information we consume.
To support positive thinking.
So it's about creating kind of a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
Where our thoughts, actions, environment all work together to support our growth and transformation.
Exactly.
Okay.
And he also emphasizes the importance of taking radical responsibility for our experiences and our beliefs.
Okay.
It's easy to blame external circumstances for our unhappiness.
Yeah.
But Cox challenges us to recognize the power we have to shape our reality through our thoughts, choices, and actions.
That's a powerful reminder that we're not just victims of circumstance.
Right.
We have agency in creating the life we want.
Exactly.
But this idea of radical responsibility can feel a bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
Where do we even start with that?
He suggests starting with small, manageable steps.
Okay.
So instead of trying to overhaul your entire life overnight,
right,
focus on one area where you want to see change.
Okay.
Maybe it's your career, your relationships, your health, and then start implementing his techniques in that area.
So baby steps.
Baby steps.
Got it. Okay, before we dive into those specific techniques, there's one more thing I want to touch on.
Okay.
Cox mentioned experiencing a flow state.
Right.
While he was making this video.
Yeah.
And you briefly explained what that means.
Right.
But how does this flow state relate to letting go and manifesting our desires?
Right.
Is there a connection there?
There's definitely a connection, and it's a fascinating one.
Okay.
The flow state is often described as a state of effortless creation and alignment, where everything just seems to flow effortlessly.
So being in the zone would be a flow state.
Exactly.
Okay, I can see how that could be really conducive to creating amazing things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that many researchers believe that the flow state is more easily accessed when we're able to quiet our internal chatter and let go of our need to control, you know, when we're not constantly second-guessing ourselves or worrying about the outcome. We're able to fully immerse ourselves in the present moment and allow our creativity to flow freely.
It's like we're getting out of our own way.
Exactly.
And allowing the universe to work its magic through us.
Precisely.
Okay.
And this aligns perfectly with Cox's message about the power of letting go. When we release our attachments and surrender to the present moment, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities, including the possibility of experiencing flow more frequently.
This is incredibly thought-provoking. I'm already starting to see how these seemingly disparate concepts, letting go, present moment creation flow state, they all kind of weave together into this powerful framework for personal transformation.
It's a fascinating tapestry for sure.
It is.
And the best part is it's not just theoretical. It's something that we can all experience and benefit from in our own lives.
I'm definitely feeling inspired to explore these ideas further, and I'm sure our listener is too.
Yeah.
Now, before we get too carried away, let's take a moment to kind of digest all this amazing information.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll dive deeper into those practical techniques Cox suggests.
Sounds good.
For letting go and manifesting our desires.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to kind of dive into the practical side of letting go.
Okay.
Before the break, we were talking about those simple yet powerful techniques that Jeremy Cox suggests for letting go.
Yeah.
The one that really stood out to me was this idea of visualizing positive outcomes, not just for ourselves, but for others as well.
Yeah, it's a really interesting twist on the traditional visualization technique.
Right.
You know, Cox believes that by extending those positive visualizations outward, we're not only cultivating a sense of compassion and connection, but we're also amplifying that positive energy we're putting out into the world.
So it's like we're creating a ripple effect of positivity.
Exactly.
Instead of just focusing on our own little bubble. We're kind of expanding our awareness to include the well-being of others.
Yeah.
I can see how that would be really powerful.
Yeah, and he uses the example of encountering a homeless person on the street. Instead of just feeling pity or looking away, he suggests taking a moment to visualize that person finding shelter, getting a job, turning their life around. It's about sending out a silent wish for their well-being. And in doing so, you're kind of contributing to a more positive collective reality.
That's a beautiful practice. I love that. But what about those times when we're struggling with our own negative thoughts and emotions? How do we shift our focus from dwelling on the bad stuff to cultivating a more positive mindset?
He suggests a couple of techniques for this. One is to simply become more aware of the thoughts that we're thinking. Often we're so caught up in our mental chatter that we don't even realize how negative or self-defeating those thoughts are. So the first step is just to kind of observe your thoughts without judgment.
It's like becoming a witness to your own mental processes.
Exactly.
Just noticing what's going on in there without getting swept away by it.
Yeah, and once we can start noticing those negative thoughts, we can begin to challenge them. Cox suggests asking ourselves, is this thought really true? What evidence do I have to support it? Is it serving me or is it holding me back?
That's a really powerful way to interrupt those thought patterns. Instead of just accepting them as truth.
Exactly.
You're questioning their validity and their impact on your well-being.
Precisely. And once we've challenged those negative thoughts, we can start replacing them with more positive and empowering beliefs. This is where affirmations can be really helpful. By consciously choosing to repeat positive statements to ourselves. We can start to reprogram our subconscious minds. And create new neural pathways that support our desired outcomes.
So it's like we're rewiring our brains for positivity.
That's a great analogy. Instead of running those same old negative programs, we're installing new software that supports our growth and well-being.
This makes a lot of sense.
Good.
But I can see how it might be challenging to maintain that positive mindset when we're constantly bombarded with negativity from the outside world.
Yeah.
Whether it's the news or social media,
right,
or even just the people around us.
Sure.
It can feel like we're swimming upstream.
Yeah.
Against a current of negativity.
You're absolutely right. And that's why Cox emphasizes the importance of being mindful of the information we consume and the environments that we surround ourselves with.
Okay.
He suggests limiting our exposure to news and social media.
Right.
Especially if it tends to trigger negative emotions.
So creating a kind of protective bubble around ourselves.
Yeah.
Where we can cultivate a more positive and supportive atmosphere.
Exactly. And it's not about living in a bubble of denial.
Right.
It's about being conscious of what we're allowing into our mental and emotional space. Just like we're careful about what we put into our bodies, we need to be equally mindful of what we're feeding our minds.
Makes sense. What about the people in our lives that might be bringing us down?
Right.
How do we handle those relationships in a way that supports our growth?
That's a tough one, and there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
But Cox suggests that we need to be honest with ourselves about which relationships are truly supportive.
Right.
And which ones might be draining our energy.
Yeah.
You know, he's not advocating for cutting people out of our lives,
right,
but rather for setting healthy boundaries
right,
and being more conscious of that energy exchange in our relationships.
So it's about recognizing that we have a choice.
Exactly.
In who we spend our time with.
Yeah.
And how we allow them to affect us.
Precisely. And sometimes that might mean creating some distance from people who are constantly negative or draining.
Okay.
Other times it might mean having honest conversations about our needs and setting clear boundaries. The key is to prioritize our own well-being.
Yeah.
And to surround ourselves with people who uplift and inspire us.
This is giving me a lot to think about in terms of my own relationships.
Yeah.
And how I'm showing up in them.
Okay.
But before we wrap up this deep dive.
Okay.
I want to circle back to this concept of radical responsibility.
Right.
Which we touched on earlier.
Yeah.
I'm still grappling with this idea.
Okay.
It can feel so empowering to recognize that we have the power to shape our reality.
Right.
But it can also feel incredibly overwhelming.
Sure.
Like if everything is our creation.
Yeah.
Aren't we also responsible for all the bad stuff that happens?
That's a really common misconception about radical responsibility. It's not about blaming ourselves for everything that goes wrong.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that we always have a choice in how we respond to those experiences.
So it's not about fault or blame.
Right.
It's about empowerment.
Exactly. And it's about understanding that even in the face of challenging circumstances, we always have the power to choose our attitude, our thoughts, our actions. We can choose to be victims of our circumstances, or we can choose to be creators of our own reality.
That's a powerful distinction.
It is.
And it makes me realize that radical responsibility isn't about taking on the weight of the world.
Right.
It's about stepping into our own power.
Exactly.
And recognizing that we have the ability to create a more positive and fulfilling life.
Yeah.
No matter what challenges we face.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And it really encapsulates the essence of Cox's message. You know, letting go is not about giving up or becoming passive.
Right.
It's about surrendering to the present moment, taking responsibility for our choices, and embracing the power we have to create a life that truly aligns with our deepest desires.
This has been such an eye-opening conversation.
Yeah.
I'm feeling inspired and ready to put these ideas into practice.
Awesome.
I'm sure our listener is too.
Yeah.
Now, before we wrap things up, is there anything else from Cox's video that you think is important for our listener to take away from this deep dive?
One thing that really stood out to me was how he ties this all back to that flow state he mentioned, you know, that he was experiencing while he was making the video.
Yeah.
It's like the culmination of all these practices, letting go, being present, taking responsibility.
You know, when you first mentioned the flow state, I kind of thought, oh, that's just for like artists and athletes.
Right.
But the more we talk about it, the more I realize it's something that we can all access.
Yeah.
In our own way.
Absolutely.
Regardless of what we're doing.
And what's so fascinating is that flow state seems to be more readily accessible when we actually embody those principles that we've been discussing.
Yeah.
When we're able to quiet that mental chatter, release the need to control every outcome,
right,
and fully immerse ourselves in the present moment, that's when we create the conditions for flow to kind of emerge.
So letting go isn't just about manifesting specific things. It's about creating a state of being.
Exactly.
Where creativity, inspiration, joy
can
flow more effortlessly.
Precisely. And that aligns with what a lot of researchers have observed about the flow state.
Okay.
It's often described as this state of heightened focus and engagement, where we lose track of time.
Right.
We experience this sense of effortless creativity and productivity.
Cox mentioned that while he was making this video, like, the words just flowed out of him.
Yeah.
Effortlessly.
Right.
As if he was tapping into some source of creativity beyond his conscious mind.
That's a common experience among people that have experienced flow. They often describe it as feeling like they're in the zone.
Right.
Their actions and their thoughts are aligning perfectly, and they're able to tap into this wellspring of creativity and insight.
It makes me wonder, are there things we can do to cultivate that flow state more intentionally? Or is it something that just kind of happens spontaneously when the conditions are right?
Well, there's always an element of spontaneity to flow, for sure. Yeah.
But there are definitely things we can do to make ourselves more receptive to it.
Okay.
One key factor is finding activities that truly engage us. Things that spark our curiosity and passion.
Okay.
When we're doing something that we love, something that feels aligned with our purpose.
Right.
We're much more likely to slip into that flow state.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where challenge and skill kind of intersect.
Exactly.
If something's too easy, we get bored.
Right.
If it's too difficult, we get frustrated.
Yeah.
But when we're engaged in an activity that's stretching our abilities just enough, that's where the magic happens.
That's where the magic happens. And this is where the concept of letting go ties in so beautifully. You know, when we can let go of our fear of failure, our need for perfection, our attachment to those specific outcomes, we create the space for flow to emerge.
It's like giving ourselves permission to play, to experiment,
to
explore without the pressure of having to get it right. That's a great way to put it. And when we can approach life with that sense of playfulness and curiosity, we open ourselves up to a world of possibilities.
Yeah.
We become more receptive to new ideas, more adaptable to change, more resilient in the face of challenges.
This has been such an illuminating conversation.
Oh, good.
I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the power of letting go.
Yeah.
It's not just about getting what we want.
Right.
It's about cultivating a state of being.
Exactly.
Where we're more aligned with our true selves, more connected to the present moment, and more open to the flow of life.
Beautifully said. And to our listener, we encourage you to explore these ideas further.
Yes.
Experiment with the practices that we've discussed.
Yeah.
And just see what unfolds in your own life when you embrace the art of letting go.
Who knows what magic you might create? Until next time, happy flowing.
To anybody that I offended in 2024, work on yourself so I don't gotta do it again in 2025. Don't let that go over your head.